All right, so talking about distance and midpoint today, distance formula, I don't know why, but I always set it up like this. So we're taking the square root of this whole thing that's underneath here. So we're going to start off with our x values. So we're going to have x2 minus x1 in this first set of parentheses. In the second set of parentheses, we've got y2 minus y1. All right. Did everybody get it written down? Okay, so important points. Distance, for the distance formula is used to find the distance between 2 points on your graph. So, for example, points A and C. Since they aren't in a place where we could just vertically count up the graph or horizontally count over, we've got to find this like kind of slanted or at an angled distance. You okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is identify our points. So that's what we'll do with this graph. Step 1. So the point A is at 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The point C is at 0, 3. So this is what I'm going to use to plug into my formula, which is the next step. So this is going to be my x1 and my y1. This is going to be my x2 and my y2. So step 2 says we're just going to plug this into the formula. So our distance equals the square root. And then I don't know why, but I always just set mine up first and then plug in the numbers. So in the first set of parentheses, we're going to do x2 minus x1, just like it says in the formula. So x2 is right here, so that's 0, and then x1 is 3, so 0 minus 3. In the second set of parentheses, we're doing our y coordinates. So y2 minus y1, so 3 minus a negative 7. What happens if I have 3 minus a negative 7? It becomes plus 7. All right, so this is kind of tricky to stick into a calculator. I know a lot of us want to just plug this all in, and it's supposed to give us the right answer, but there's a lot of parentheses involved in this, so we want to just try to do this with PEMDAS as much as possible. So the first thing I'm going to do is do what's inside of my parentheses. So 0 minus 3 is just negative 3 plus, and then I have 3 plus 7, which is 10. All right, next thing PEMDAS tells us is to do our exponents. So we're going to square both of these numbers. So negative 3 squared. I'm going to do a little side work over here. If you know this, you don't have to write it down. But negative 3 squared is the same thing as negative 3 times negative 3. So a negative times a negative gives us a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. So anytime that you square a number, even if it's a negative number, you're always going to end up with a positive outcome. So this is 9, and then 10 squared would be what? 100. So our distance between those 2 points is the square root of 109. You are able to simplify square roots, but right now I just want you to focus on that distance formula. We'll work on simplifying radicals later. All right, questions on that one? Okay, example 2. So finding the distance between the 2 points. We've already done step 1. They're there. So if we need to label them, x1 and y1, x2 and y2. And then we're just going to plug them into the formula. So our distance formula in the first set of parentheses, I'm going to subtract my x value. So x2 is -3 minus my x1 is a -1. So that means I'm going to have a +1. In the other set of parentheses, I'm doing the same thing for the y coordinates. y2 minus y1. So -4 minus 4. So then I'm going to just solve this out the same ways we did in the last example. So -3 plus 1 gives us what? What's -3 plus 1? -2 squared plus, what's -4 minus 4? -8. All of it's still underneath that radical. All right, -2 squared gives us a 4 plus, what would -8 squared be? 64. Good job. Add these two together and we end up with the square root of 68. Questions on distance?
I have a question on the first one.
Okay.
How do you get 3 squared plus and minus?
Here?
Yeah.
So we had 3, and then we were subtracting the y1. So we're subtracting a negative. Subtract the negative becomes a positive.
Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Moving to midpoint. So midpoint means middle. So on the graph, we're going to find the point that's directly in between two other points. So when we write our answer is going to look like a point. So our formula kind of looks like a point, where we have something here that goes for the x-coordinate and then something here for the y-coordinate. So we are going to do x1 plus x2 and divide them both by 2. Then we are going to do the same thing for y's. y1 plus y2, and then divide those by 2. Whatever that answer is divided by 2. All right. So midpoint is important because it helps us find the exact halfway point between two other points. It is an average. You can see this is an average. We added the two things together, divided it by the number of things we were adding. So this is an average of the two coordinates. And then your answer will always be written as a coordinate, not one number. All right, so for finding the midpoint, again, first thing we want to do is identify those points. So let's do that in this first example. So step 1. We're going to find out where point B is. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then up 2. And then we also have the point at D. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So that's -8. And then we are -4. So we have our 2 points. If we want to label them with our x1s and our y1s while we're still learning this, it's not a bad idea at all. So x1, y1, x2, and y2. And then step 2 says plug it into the formula. So that's what we're going to do. So to get our midpoint, which we usually label with an M, the first thing we do is add our two x coordinates together and divide them by 2. So 6 plus a -8 divided by 2. And then we do the same thing for the y's. We add up the two y's, so 2 plus a negative 4. All right, what is 6 plus a negative 8? Negative 2. And then 2 plus negative 4? Negative 2. So then our midpoint, once we simplify this, negative 2 over 2 is going to give us a negative 1, and then this would also give us a negative 1. So that's our midpoints, directly in between the two, right there. So there's something I really want to stress to you guys, and it's going to help us with the next problem. So this right equals this. Does anybody disagree with me? No, that's how we got it, right? This is, we did the math and we found out it equaled negative 1, so that's what we wrote. All right, so let's remember that when we go on to this one. So this one tells us that M is the midpoint of AB. We want to find the coordinate of B if the coordinate of A is 3, 7, and the midpoint is 5, 10. So I'm going to write out all the points that I have. So I know that A and B are the 2 points that I'm looking to get them into the middle of. So A is 3, 7. B, did they tell us what B was? No. So all I know is that some number goes there and some number goes there. So I'm just going to place an X and a Y there. And then they also gave us the midpoint, which is 5, 10. So I'm going to set this up exactly the same way I set this one up. Okay? So to find the midpoint, I add together my two X coordinates. So 3 and X. Divide them by 2. To find the Y coordinate of that midpoint, I'm going to add together the two Y pieces. So 7 and Y. Divide them by 2. And then we're going to math, and we find out that our midpoint is 5, 10, right? Just like we did here. So this equals this. So that's what we have to do in order to solve for the missing X and Y. So to find, I write too big for this space, so to find X, we're going to take this 3 plus X divided by 2, and we're going to set it equal to 5 because this equals this. Questions? Okay. How do I clear out this fraction? How do I clear out the fraction? Anybody know? What operation is happening here? Division. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So anytime I want to get rid of a fraction, I want to multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That cancels this fraction out. So I get 3 plus X equals 10. Then I'm going to subtract the 3 from both sides, and X equals 7. Same process for the Y. So to find Y, this 7 plus Y divided by 2 equals what? 10. You're a genius. All right. So how do I clear out the fraction? Multiply both sides by 2. That cancels right there. 7 plus y equals 20. Subtract 7 from both sides, and y equals 13. So, this whole question asked us to find the coordinate of B. So our point B, we need an x and a y. There's our x, there's our y.